Well, hello and welcome to Strategos on Facebook Live. I am Roy Harriman, and I am here with Barry Young, Director of Church Security Ministries for Strategos. And first of all, thank you for joining us. We have got a great topic for you today. It's always awesome to converse with Barry. Many of you have met him, heard him talk, worked with him in various security capacities. So it's great to have him here. His first time on our Facebook Live show. Are you nervous, Barry?
I'm glad to be here. I'm excited.
Okay. All right. Before we get rolling, just want to let you know, we welcome constructive comments, questions, feedback that you have throughout our discussion here. And we'll do our best to respond, if not right away, as we are proceeding through our discussion. So our topic today is one that's specifically selected by Barry, and it's the idea of church security as a ministry versus looking at it as sort of Sunday special ops. Barry, why did you choose this topic, church security as a ministry? What are you experiencing that put this to the forefront of your mind as something that you wanted to share with our viewers today?
Well, there's a tactical purpose and there's a practical purpose. First of all, the practical purpose is that we work with a lot of insurance companies. We work with Church Mutual, Brotherhood Mutual, we work with Guide One, and almost every insurance company we talk to, they want to make sure that when we train churches in church security, we're doing it as a ministry. The second reason, though, that we want to talk about church security as a ministry is the tactical side. When people are doing church security, most of them are volunteers. And when they feel like they're ordered to do something, when they're just another number, they only do church security for the short term. And our goal is church security for the long term. We want to make sure that people understand that when they do church security, they're doing this unto the Lord. And not only are they receiving the benefit of keeping people safe, but they're receiving the benefit of doing ministry that honors God and that has an eternal purpose.
Well, excellent. You know, to help us get an idea of what it means looking at church security as a ministry, what are the alternatives? I know it's nothing that you're recommending, but obviously there's a good thing, a good side of it, looking at it as a ministry. What's the alternative? What is it that you're wanting to steer people away from?
This is what we want to steer people away from. And we've seen it in some churches where people are sitting in the back of the church. Their back is against the walls. They have a scowl on their face, and they're not warm and welcoming. Oftentimes we see people in church security where they're not really paying attention. They're not being aware. They're just there because they feel an obligatory sense to be there. And so we want to steer people away from this guerrilla mentality, from this bouncer mentality. And what we want to steer people into is being tactically ready, but also being there practically to be the hands and feet of Jesus to serve other people.
Excellent point. Do you have any examples, I don't want to put you on the spot, of what that might look like? So in other words, someone is showing up to serve on their volunteer church security team, or maybe they're even even paid. And apart from stopping a bad guy from doing something wrong, because they're alert and they're aware and they're attuned to people's needs, what's some kind of ministry work that they might undertake because they have that mentality?
Let me give you a couple examples. I've been blessed to be the director of church security for 2 churches. And one of the churches I was director of church security at was New Life Church. And one time we had a Sunday service where I think we were baptizing 15 or 20 people. And behind our baptismal tank is a tile floor. And, you're baptizing 20 people. A whole bunch of people are coming out of the baptismal tank with water. One of the guys in our church security team, Richard Harris, what he did is he grabbed a mop, he grabbed a yellow cone, and he mopped up the entire area behind the baptismal tank. Obviously, he kept people safe that day from falling, from making sure nobody gets injured. He didn't do that because I asked him. I was patrolling a different part of the church. He just saw a need and met it. Another time we've seen this where somebody's on the church security team and they're being aware and they're being practical, and they see somebody that is hurting. They see somebody that's not with the pastor, but they're off to themselves and they're crying. And that church security team member goes up to them and offers to pray with them or find somebody who can pray with them. You know, it's just, I love what Tommy Barnett says. He's a pastor of a mega church in Phoenix, Arizona. He says, see a need and meet it. And the goal of church security is to see the need and meet it.
Those are great examples. I recall Vaughn Baker, president of Strategos, sharing a similar example. Was that he and his team, they noticed a man there at the service who his orientation just didn't seem right. In other words, his disposition. It wasn't being aggressive or anything, but they were concerned for his well-being because of his disposition, and they let one of the pastors know, hey, before you leave today, you need to talk to this gentleman. And the pastors did follow up, and the man was planning on going home afterward to commit suicide. And there was an intervention there because the security team was looking at people, not just at people that just didn't look right, but people who didn't seem like they felt right either.
Yes, absolutely. Can I give you one more example?
Please.
Good friend of mine who is a retired police chief at his church, somebody had contacted his pastor and said, there's somebody that's going to come to church and commit suicide. And what happened is the pastor told the church security team, and when they saw this individual, they were not trying to police them or detain them. What they were trying to do is share the love of God with them. And so there's opportunities for us to share the love of God and to reduce risk by using the ministry of the gospel of Jesus.
Absolutely. And we want to thank everybody who is viewing right now. And also, if you're watching later after our live broadcast during the replay, we thank you for joining us then. Mark Driver just joined us. And James Brown, I want to highlight a comment from him. As you were talking, Barry, James says, amen, every person on our safety team is highly engaged in multiple areas within the church. People know they can approach us about anything at any time. We have our head of interactions who serves at our entrances, is a lifelong member of our church, and myself, who serves directly with our youth group. My wife is the director of our youth ministry. It sounds like that's exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely. You know what James is doing is exactly what we want. We want people to make sure that we're putting ministry first.
Absolutely. Now, Barry, it would seem that a lot of the success of viewing church security as a ministry is going to be a result of having the right people on your church security team. I've talked with people who basically said, I don't work with kids. I don't work with students. I'm really not good with people. So I'm thinking about joining the security team. So who is a good fit and who is not?
Well, one thing is we're always looking for heart first. You know, we look at the Bible, and the Bible's constantly looking at the heart. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of your life. So what we're looking for is we're looking for people with the right heart. Now, it's ideal to have people with the right heart that have great training, that have a law enforcement, a military, fire, EMS background. But one thing we've seen over and over in our trainings, whether I'm doing a training in California, New York, Florida, wherever it is in the United States, is if they have the right heart, we can train them with the tactical skill if they don't have that. And so we want to make sure that the person we're looking for has what we say at every Strategos church security training, a servant's heart with a warrior's mindset. And oftentimes we see people that have one or the other. They have a servant's heart or they have a warrior's mindset. We're looking for that man. We're looking for that woman that has the warrior and the servant in the same person.
That's right. We can rent a warrior, right?
Yes.
But we can't rent the servant's mindset.
And you know, Roy, I can't say this enough. We can't let the devil hijack the term warrior. So a warrior doesn't mean you have to be unfaithful to your wife. You're not walking with Jesus. You use a language that you can't use around kids. You can be a tactical warrior. You can be a man or woman that has the capability and the tenacity to stop any type of threat and still be a committed follower of Jesus. And so what we want to do is, I love, we have amazing a 2- and 4-day firearms class. And anytime we take people through our firearms tactical training, we want to make sure that we're aligning them with the skills with the right heart. Our goal is servants that are tactically and practically ready to minister to people and keep them safe.
Great insights. Hey, just a couple of comments from our viewers. Stephanie Bennett Beveridge says, that's awesome. You can't train the values, but you can train the tactics. So you've got to bring values, or at least a willingness to grow in personal character. And then here's a question from Chris Carlos. Chris, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name. He says, hi, can you touch on overcoming congregational objections to the presence of an armed security team? And yeah, let's just talk about that real quickly. I know that's not our main topic for the day.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Stephanie. Stephanie's spot on. I love that quote. We can train tactics. We can't train values. And I want to go to what you said about Chris. How do we overcome objections? A couple of things we want to talk about is we want to let data drive our decisions. Let me say that again for our viewers. We do church security because we let data drive our decisions. And Chris, let me give you two stats. There's lots of stats I have, but here's the two stats I use when I try to encourage churches to be open to church security and armed church security. Since 1999, we've had over 1,700 violent church attacks. And last year in 2017, we had 261 violent church attacks. So when a congregation leadership team, whether that's pastoral leadership, elder, or deacon board, when they object to armed security, what we want to tell them is, first of all, the purpose. The only purpose, if a church were to go armed, is to keep people safe. Second thing we want to communicate to them is when we're doing armed security, we're only going to do armed security that's covered by the church insurance company, whether that be Church Mutual, Brotherhood Mutual, Guide One. And then number three, we want to provide and we want to promise our leadership that we're going to provide our church security team, if they are armed, with law enforcement level training that will be insured by their insurance company. And so there's just three things I talk about when I try to work with churches if they decide to have an armed team.
Great response, Barry, and great question, Chris. And this is something that comes up a lot. And there's a big difference between having a skilled, trained, tactically equipped, and competent security team and someone who maybe they've gone through concealed carry training and they're kind of freelancing, and that's when people get hurt. I wanted to thank Jocelyn. I'll pull up a comment here. Jocelyn Hancock says, Strategos has the best church safety and security training I have ever attended. Jocelyn, thank you for the kind words, and we want to live up to that standard for sure. I wanted to, again, if you're just joining us or you're following us up on the replay, my name is Roy Harriman, and I am here with Barry Young, Strategos Director of Church Security Ministries. And our topic today is looking at church security as a ministry versus some sort of Sunday special ops. And so we welcome your questions, your comments, and if you benefit from this, we would love it if you would share it with others who would benefit as well. Barry, I have another question for you, and that is, since we view church security as a ministry, or we are striving to view church security as a ministry, that's our ideal. Does that mean the pastor needs to be in charge because he's the ministry guy, right?
Ideally, we don't want the pastor in charge unless they want to be. What I tell people is we want to do church security so the pastor can focus on preaching the word of God, ministering to people's needs, and helping the hopeless. Now, sometimes, though, you'll have a pastor that is a Christian servant's heart, warrior's mindset, and they want to be a part of the church security team. Typically, though, that's the exception rather than the rule. Most of the pastors I know, they want church security in place so that they can focus on ministry and their church security team can focus on keeping people safe. What we do want, though, is we want to make sure every time we do church security that everything that we do at a church is submitted to the pastor. So when I was the head of security for Crown Point Church and the head of security at New Life Church, I submitted all of my policies, all of my personnel, everything we were doing. So that way the pastor had total authority, that way they could bless it. The Bible says in Romans 13:1, submit to governing authorities. And as important as church security is, and it's paramount and it's important, we got to make sure that we submit to the leadership. And one thing I found is when a church security team is proactive and what they teach has the right spirit with the right heart based on the word of God, the vast majority of times pastors want that, they encourage that, and it blesses them.
That's right. We church security team members, we can be passionate about this subject, right? And so we don't want our pastors to feel threatened. We want them to know that we're in this with them, for them. I wanted to call out a couple of great comments, and we really appreciate your comments. This is from Stephen. Stephen, I apologize if I pronounce your last name wrong, but it looks like Stephen Isles. And he was commenting on the idea of weapons in church. He says, as a concealed carry instructor, I can't agree more. Concealed training just plain isn't enough in general, especially not in a specialized situation. Looking forward to training with you folks this weekend. Well, Stephen, awesome. Thank you for engaging us and giving us an opportunity to train.
Can I say something about Stephen?
Please.
I can already tell that he's a high-level leader, and here's why. In my opinion, leaders are learners. Even our instructors that train our firearms training that have years of high-level operator-type training, when you see somebody with the heart of that young man that just put that response up, that's the type of people that need to be in church security, because we have never arrived. There is no person, regardless of title or place, that has learned everything they need to learn about church security, learned everything they need to learn about operational tactics. We're all learning. And I can't thank him enough for that post, because one thing is we have found out from insurance companies is the majority of church insurance companies, if not all of them that we work with, they want their ARM team to have a level of training that is higher than CCW.
Absolutely. And Barry, I want to, I won't pull this up on the screen because it's quite lengthy, but Sandy Robinson has an excellent question, and I'll just summarize it. She says, what can we do to encourage pastors and church leadership who haven't bought into the idea that they need security? So, for example, a question that may come up is this necessary for a small church such as ours?
So a couple thoughts on that. Let me look at two different sides. The first side is for churches that are smaller, we want to let the data drive our decisions. When you're in a town or a city of under 10,000, your risk went up because the law enforcement agency is smaller and the response time is longer. When you're in a big city and you're still at a small church, I believe that the majority of criminals view a small church as a softer target than a large church. Oftentimes, a larger church is going to have law enforcement doing traffic control, some type of uniform presence. And so I think a lot of times the smaller churches are the softer targets. And so I think it's key that we communicate to our pastors. And one thing is, I hear this all the time, church leadership, church security leadership are wanting to communicate to church leadership the vital importance of church security. A lot of times we're audio learners, but also visual. There's a great movie called Faith Under Fire. It's a Christian movie. And I recommend church security team members watch that with their team and allow their pastor to watch it. It documents the very first church attack in modern church history in Dangerfield, Texas. And so I also, one other thing before we take another question or comment, working with your pastor takes a little time to get them to fully understand the importance of church security. And here's the reason, and it's not the pastor's fault. In most Bible colleges and seminaries, there are 0 classes offered to pastors on church security. So when a church security team member or church security leader goes to the pastor, they've got to understand this is the very first time the pastor has really been confronted with the reality we need church security.
Excellent, excellent approach, Barry. And not to over spiritualize things. I don't like cliches, but start with prayer as well. There's a lot at stake, and when there's a lot at stake, we need to pray. And also, just again, the pastor, you don't know what kind of inputs that they've received. They may have heard, maybe someone came in 5 or 7 years ago with a pistol bulging out of his jacket and said, we're gonna take him down, and it scared him. So let him know that you're an eminently reasonable person and you want what's best.
And if I can add one thing, Roy, I was just in Arkansas. We had 100-person training at Geyer Springs First Baptist Church. The room was packed out, and I would never, ever put down another ministry, so I won't use a name. But I had a gentleman come up to me and said, it's such a blessing to be here at Strategos. I took my pastor to another church security training, and they didn't come from the ministry perspective, and they scared my pastor, and now they're not open to church security. And so that's one, this kind of leads us back to our topic. Why do we want to focus from a ministry base? We want to focus from a ministry base because Jesus came to seek and save that which was lost. And we also want to focus from a ministry base because our pastors can understand when we started a ministry base where we're coming from. And then lastly, of many reasons, we want church security team members to view this as something they're doing not just for themselves, but it's a ministry unto the Lord.
Absolutely. And Joyce and others, I wanted to just also point you to a resource that you can find on our website, which I put the URL on the screen, strategosintl.com. We have a short book called the Church Security Handbook, written by our President Von Baker, which is a great resource. It's a quick read, a great resource to introduce pastors, board members, and others who aren't familiar with the concept. Why church security? It looks at biblical justification. It looks at the data, as Barry said. It's not a scare your pastor book, as Barry just said. So thank you for the questions. And some great comments on our screen. For sake of time, Barry, let me pass this question on to you, and then we can take any others as a closing. I have seen, as I look at news reports every day about church security and intruder response, there are more and more, and I don't in any ways want to imply that it's the majority, it's a small number, but increasingly there's media visibility related to churches that are putting up signs such as, you know, we use deadly force, guns, welcome, this is not a gun-free zone. Do those help or hinder the idea of church security as a ministry, in your view? Okay, so I view one of the greatest ways we can be effective is to have balance. So I encourage churches, my opinion is, I don't believe churches should put up signs. I'm going to take the opposite side first. I don't believe churches should put up signs, no guns allowed. And I believe that's an advertisement because we know that law-abiding citizens follow laws, and the definition of criminal means somebody who doesn't obey the law. So I don't think signs that say no guns allowed, I do not think that's helpful. However, I'm not a big fan of people that put up opposite signs. We use force. This is a gun-free zone. What I like to do is I want a warm, welcoming atmosphere. And one thing that we teach at Strategos that anybody who's been in our trainings knows, capability breeds humility. And so what we want to do is we want to have a security team presence that does not distract, does not disrupt. It reinforces the core mission. So my opinion would be no signs at all. That would be my opinion. But I'm learning, you know, we're all learning. And if I see some data that would point me the other ways, my concern is there's people that love God that don't believe in guns. There's people that love God that believe in guns. There's people that need God that don't believe in guns. There's people that need God that do believe in guns. And what I want to do by any sign that I would put up, I don't want to keep people from hearing the gospel of Jesus. My goal is to just keep everybody safe and have a tactical and practical response for every and any church security need we would have. I love the idea of the balanced approach. Absolutely. You know, let the signs not distract from the mission, but enhance the mission. So I am going to go ahead and put Barry's email address here on the screen for those who want to follow up with him. If you're interested in learning more about training, you know, bringing our training to your church or your community may be one of the best ways to help pastors, board members, people who want to know more, to, you know, gain buy-in and get educated so they can make an informed decision. We thank you so much for all the comments today. Again, if you benefited from this, we encourage you to share it with others who can also benefit. Barry, anything we didn't cover that's important, or any closing comments you want to make about this idea, church security as a ministry? Roy, I've seen this all over America where I've bumped into numerous men and women after a church security training that I'll do, they'll start to weep. And what will happen is a light bulb goes off in their mind. Many of these Christian protectors, they love God, they love the Lord, they have a law enforcement, military, fire, EMS background, or they're just a protector that serves as a teacher or a protector that serves as an accountant. And when they find out
that they can use their skills and passions in church security and the protection of others. When they find out they can use that to worship God, all of a sudden it gives an overwhelming purpose to their life. And for each and every person that's watching this broadcast, I just want you to know that what you do in church security is 100% just as important as the sermon that's going to be preached this Sunday or the worship songs that are going to be sung. It is a ministry that is vital to the body of Christ, and God is using you to give people hope and possibility and the opportunity to come in contact with the most powerful force in this world, the love of Jesus Christ. And so for those church protectors that are listening to me, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for listening to Strategos. And Strategos, you know, we're not perfect. We don't have everything figured out. And we are so much stronger together. And so I just want to say thank you for letting me be here, Roy, and for everyone that's watching today and commented. It's been an honor to share this afternoon with you.
Thank you, Barry, and thanks for all the great comments. And it looks like we're going to see several people out on the road based on our comments. So it's exciting to be able to connect either again or in advance of a live training, whether it's a educational one or hands-on tactical training. And if we can be of service, you can contact Barry through his email address or visit our website, strategosintl.com. And if you just want to get an overview into this, you can pick up our Church Security Handbook. If you're an e-reader, you can get it on Amazon.com. It's the Church Security Handbook by Vaughn Baker. That is all that we have. We welcome you sharing this with others, and you'll also be able to find this on our website and our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. And Barry, you have an excellent day. Thanks for being our guest.
Hey, brother. God bless you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.